In this video, I concentrate on conjecture mapping and hypothetical learning trajectories. So, back to the idea of design research. It's all about connecting research and design theory and practice. So we hope that the design is research-based and we make sure that the research is design-based. But how do we make this connection? In a previous video I talked about design principles as an intermediate level between practice and theory. In this video I concentrate on Bill Sandoval's idea of conjecture mapping and Marty Simon's idea of hypothetical learning trajectories. This is an example of a conjecture map. The idea is that we start with a high-level conjecture about how you could support learning of teachers or students in some context. That's the basic idea that we are working out. And this idea is embodied, put into a tool or activity or a structure, or even a bigger issue like discursive practices or organizational structure. And once that is successful, then we can formulate design conjectures. How these features lead to certain processes that we want to stimulate and that are observable. And these intermediate processes then lead to certain learning outcomes that we want to achieve. Now, often you see that certain design characteristics are directly related to outcomes, but I think Bill Sandoval is right that there are often many processes in between, mediating processes or mechanisms that are important to have in the picture as well. And if you do that, you can make the distinction between design conjectures about how these features lead to that and theoretical conjectures of how these processes lead to the outcomes you want to achieve. Now, design conjectures take the general form of if learners engage in this activity structure with these tools through this discursive practice, etc., then this mediating process will emerge. A theoretical conjecture is more of the form if this mediating process occurs, it will lead to this outcome, all testable conjectures. And together, these can feed a hypothetical learning trajectory, so how you get from A to B. Now, a hypothetical learning trajectory is more explicitly about the chronology of how you make steps. Students start with a starting point and you help them with certain activities to a next step. From there on, you predict what will happen and you go on towards the learning goals you hope to achieve, or educational goals more generally. So that means you need to know starting points and students' prior knowledge. You need to know where you want to go, have good reasons for that, but also stepping stones. And here comes the hypothetical part, how you help students or teachers move from one to the next phase. And these remain always hypothetical. Now, a hypothetical learning trajectory, in my experience, is useful in all phases of design research. In the first place, it forces you to think through very carefully, why do I want to do this? What features does my design need to have? What implicit assumptions do I make? And once you have it on paper, you can share this with colleagues and others and teachers and everyone who you're working with to make explicit what you want. And then it becomes a guideline during a teaching experiment or during implementation or a trial, in which it is sort of like a teacher guideline, where it has a different function and also helps the researcher focus on these things that you predicted, which gives you better data. And then last, once the teaching experiment is done, you can analyze the data, but you do this with a specific lens because you have testable conjectures that you can compare with what actually happened. And this comparison helps you gain knowledge about what you conjectured, but also gives ideas of how to improve the design and your theory for the next round of design research in education. So I hope the ideas of conjecture mapping and hypothetical learning trajectories are things you will study by means of these authors, but they have been discussed by many other authors. Thank you for watching again.